This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, nice lady, for letting us know that this week is being recorded. Welcome to the Texas League Video Podcast. This is week 4. I am one of your hosts, Dwayne Morrow. Also with me returning this week is Mr. Kyle Caldwell, also known as Dr. Deuce, and as always, our illustrious league commissioner, Professor Cowan. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have everybody back in the house this week. So let's talk a little bit about last week's or NFL week 3. Let's start with one of the worst games I've seen in a long time, which was last week's Thursday night game between the Steelers and the Browns. What do we think about that game, guys? I mean, it was a comedy of errors, essentially.
Jacoby Brissett looked like an actual quarterback.
Right. Cleveland's defense, which was expected to be one of their strengths this year, showed why that unit is highly regarded across the league. Cleveland sitting at 2-1 coming into after 3 weeks is, considering that their superstar quarterback Deshaun Watson is still out, they have to be happy with that. In their eyes, if they can come out 500 or better before he comes back from this suspension, I think that's a good goal for them. Continued production from the run game for Cleveland. I think that Chubb fantasy owners were happy once again with his performance last Thursday. So from a fantasy standpoint, again, Najee being pretty much the bright spot for the Steelers. But in terms of as a football fan, the game was not very watchable.
I didn't see it until like the middle of the third quarter when I got home, and I'm like, wow, I wasn't impressed.
No,
I mean,
you didn't miss much.
You expect better out of the Steelers, but with all their turnover, you get what you get. They are who we thought they were. Now,
as a Browns fantasy owner in 2 leagues, I was very happy with their defense in that production, which definitely helped me win 2 of my 3 matchups for this weekend. We'll talk about the one I didn't win a little bit later on. So let's talk about the reason why, once again, I didn't win. And let's turn to the Tampa Bay versus Green Bay game. Mr. Cowan, let's talk. Can you give us a little bit about what's going on with your Buccaneers?
Mike Evans was suspended. Julio Jones is Julio Jones, and he is banged up. Chris Godwin came back week 1 with that off that knee injury, and I don't think he should have. So now he hurt his hamstring. So Brady was left throwing to fresh off the couch Cole Beasley,
who you scooped up.
You never know. You like, let me pick him up just in case he did something. Then you got Bashard Perryman, Scotty Miller, who can't seem to hold on to a ball. It was just downhill. And then on the other side, Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who don't believe in drafting first-round wide receivers and let their best one go to Oakland. That whole game was just low scoring.
That's right, Las Vegas.
Maybe if they was in Oakland, they might have won the game by now.
Well, since you brought it up, I'll go ahead and get into it. The Raiders at Titans game. I don't know what on earth was going on with the Raiders in the first half of that game, especially the defense. The Titans basically came out and did whatever they wanted offensively in the first half of that game and ran out to a 24-10 lead at the halftime. And then the defense showed up from the airport and shut them out in the second half. Unfortunately, the Titans defense was able to make one more play that we needed them to stop a 2-point conversion that we were trying to go and force overtime. But from a fantasy standpoint, Derek Carr had a good game. Again, the targets. So this is the third game in a row, of course, where Davante Adams has scored. But one of the problems right now is targets versus catches. So he has 34 targets on the season, but only 17 catches. Some of the passes have been not good throws. Another part of it is him constantly facing double teams. So in order for that relationship between him and Carr to keep developing from a fantasy standpoint, he's going to have to trust Davante to win those 50-50 passes and sometimes throw him open or continue to throw the ball to him in situations where he has to fight his way open. I think Davante has earned the trust as a receiver in this league that he's going to fight to make those catches. Darren Waller with an absolutely unforgivable drop in the second quarter that probably was the difference in the game. Like that killed the drive in the second quarter where the Titans were able to get the ball back and then go down and kick that last field goal. So, little mistakes like that. So the Raiders sitting at 0-3 are one of two winless teams left in the league, the other one being the Houston Texans, who are 0-1 thanks to a tie with the Colts. But then we'll go to our other host's favorite team. Let's talk about the Jaguars, who went to LA and I'm not going to beat up on them, man. I'll let you speak on your team, Mr. Caldwell.
Oh, I'll beat up on them because I don't know what in the heck was happening, but we were outclassed by Sunshine and his boys. I did not see that coming. I mean, honestly, personally, I don't think Herbert should have played because not one time did he take off the run like he normally does. He also didn't have Keenan Allen, which is usually his safety net, no matter where the hell he's at on the field, especially for those short yard throws. Mike Williams couldn't catch some of those catches that were over. I mean, Everett ate. He threw to the tight end a lot, but we just couldn't get it going. And turnovers, interceptions, fumbles. I think I remember in the second quarter, I'm sitting there yelling at the damn TV, like the TV did something wrong to me. I'm like, how are we fumbling it on the damn 9-yard line to give it back to us so I have 9 yards to get to the damn end zone? It's like, secure the ball. I mean, defense wins games. And their defense came to play and our offense was still on the beach. I'm not entirely sure where they were, but they weren't in the damn stadium. And so we took that L on the chin like some champs because we took it. But I mean, at least we got a win against a team who's over in that main nameless. But so at least we ain't winless, but still, I mean, it was not a good day to be in the AFC West. And I'm not counting Denver's win to 11-10 because no, I'm not playing that game. I'm not even counting that. So as far as I'm concerned, nobody in the AFC West won.
I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna beat Denver's ass next week in Vegas. I don't usually say stuff like this as a fan because, again, even as a fan, I don't believe in getting too high or getting too low on your team. Like I definitely don't like the fact that we're 0-3, but we're 0-3 and each game was a one possession game, one score game. So we're 0-3, but we seriously could just as easily be 3-0. But I am going to tell you right now that we're going to beat the shit out of Denver this week.
It's like we play Houston next week, and I wish I could say that we're going to, but I don't know.
If Keenan Allen is healthy,
yes, if Keenan Allen is healthy, and if Herbert plays like he normally plays, I think we beat Houston hands down.
I think that's exactly why they should shut Herbert down next week because it's Houston.
I'm fine with that. Chase Daniels can do his thing. I have no issue with that.
And then you give Chase Daniels a revenge opportunity.
There you go.
He's facing his old team. He's going to be fired up. Herbert's not healthy. So again, me being a sports fan and a Raiders fan especially, everybody knows. Like I have people that come out the woodwork that I don't talk to for months, but anytime there's something to do with the Raiders, they make sure to ring my phone. So I shared this text exchange with Jared, but I'm gonna mention it to you now. A friend of mine hit me up after week 1. It's like, dang, man, y'all gonna let the Chargers do y'all like that? And my response to him was, don't get too high on the Chargers. They'll mess around and lose to the Jaguars at home in week 3.
There you go. You called it.
Now, of course, I didn't realize there was going to be injuries involved like that. I definitely wouldn't have guessed it. It would have been that kind of loss, but I was messing around with him and saying, because again, I was thinking about that game last year against the Texans, like losing to the Texans last year, like they did. That was the difference between us going to the playoffs and the Chargers going to the playoffs. So you hate to see a loss like that get away from you. But just, again, not a good week. For a lot of these games were just not good. And so let us roll right on to the continued night game. So again, as we've talked about before, Monday Night Football is a lot of teams' last chance to make a come from behind win. And if you've got a slim lead, you always want the Monday Night Football game to be low scoring, terrible. Somebody has a reason not to come back into the game if you're facing them, whatever. You're just holding out the hope. So as we rolled into Monday Night Football with the NFC East matchup between the Cowboys and the Giants, the first half of that game stuck to the script of a lot of the weekend's games, and it was just bad football overall. The Cowboys receivers couldn't catch a cold butt naked in Alaska. Like, they were just dropping stuff everywhere. CeeDee Lamb, like, whatever anti-stick-em is what he had to have on his hands, the way he was dropping passes in the first half. He came out renewed in the second half, I'll say. He made some big catches in the second half and really helped out his fantasy owners. And then you also had Zeke. Let me take a look and see what was Zeke's stat line, because he hasn't been burning it up lately, but he actually had a decent game.
Yeah, he was close to getting me that win, but I just needed that 1 yard touchdown. That's all I needed. One more 1 yard touchdown, I would have won.
So that he got 1 1 yard plunge.
Yes.
He needed one more 1 yard plunge to get my man Deuce his first win of the season in Texas League, but alas, it was not to be. On the flip side of that, I was one of the people who needed a player to not have a good game on Monday Night Football, facing my opponent who had Saquon Barkley with a very slight lead. And unfortunately, a healthy Saquon is a healthy Saquon. And when he broke that 38-yard touchdown, that was it. That was it for me. So that pretty much hung up my score. So what we'll do now is we will take a look at the scores real quick from last week. And then we'll talk about where we stand as predictors. So this is where we stand from last week. So just kind of looking at some of the highlights of the week, as I stated, I lost to Company Man. So Company Man is our final undefeated team in Texas League, and they graciously gave me a nice solid loss this week. Just to touch on, there wasn't anything where I could have done on my roster in particular that would have caused a change. Like, I could have changed a player here or there, but the point differential, had I swapped out 2 players that could have potentially been higher, still wouldn't have closed the gap enough for me to get a win. So I picked against myself last week, hoping for a little bit of reverse psychology to help me out, but it was not to be, and I still remain winless. Talk about your win, Dr. Cowan.
I got to win. That's about it in a nutshell. My team performed as well as I thought they would. His team definitely didn't perform as well well as I thought they would. And all that matters is I got the W. And, it's fantasy. So you got to take the good weeks with the bad weeks. I'm just waiting to get this high score once, but,
Indeed,
I'll take,
indeed.
I'll take the W. I'm sick of sending people money already.
Right. I would love to get a W plus high score just to go ahead and be all the way greedy and ambitious just one of these weeks. Next up, we have the matchup between the previously undefeated new name Eggcorn, which is managed by Jamil Marcel Brown, versus our good friend Chris, who, despite his overload of Steelers players, still managed to have a good production. Not only did he win his matchup, he was the highest scoring team of the week, and he hits the trifecta because he also had the largest blowout of the week. So, maybe Eggcorn should settle on a team name and not give himself the bad juju of changing his name every week. I don't even know what the hell Eggcorn means. Don't feel like you need to explain yourself, Mr. Brown. So maybe if you go back to being your $200 dates, it'll be good luck for you in the following week. Next matchup, 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal, which is our shared team versus our reigning champ, Big Green. I mean, this was almost the biggest blowout of the week. Big Green has some roster issues. Like, we know that right now. Injuries, lack of performance, like it just wasn't a good game. Like, they were the lowest scoring team of the week, which is not surprising because, again, this was not a lot of players this week just didn't have good fantasy weeks, and they were just not good football games. So that's not surprising. Armed Rodgery left us behind in the winless circle, able to pull off a solid victory against the previously undefeated guest host, Super Mario Cristobalin, whose strong team, again, just wasn't a good week for their team. Mathis King, our other winless team, talk to us about how this matchup felt for you this week. Let's take a look. Let's take a little bit of a look.
My big goose egg by my defense didn't help. I mean, I only lost by 3 points, but there honestly was very little I could have done as far as bench players go to put in. Just underperformed. I mean, Cook actually got me something this year. He almost got 100 yards. That fumble lost me a point or two. But
yeah, the Chargers, I mean, again, like I said, Cleveland's defense, they well outperformed their, projection. And even with Cordell Patterson having a really explosive game, like, I didn't see him grab, like, he almost doubled his projection this week. So, you would think that might be enough to offset that kind of production, but you just needed something from the Chargers defense to get you the win. But that's okay, because we're not done. There's still a lot of football left. So
yeah, I went 0-3 the beginning of last season and almost made the playoffs. So, I mean.
So let's talk about that. Right now, if you're in the NFL and your team is 0-3 or your team is winless, like my team is, the focus is just get a win. Like, there's nothing that you can talk about. Like, there's no, we could do this, we could do that. No, the only objective is to get a win. But when you're dealing with it from a fantasy standpoint, the question starts becoming, especially since we're in a dynasty league, what do you do when your team, we're going to talk about a little bit of 0-3 and a little bit of 3-0. So as a person who's sitting at 0-3 right now, Deuce, what are you thinking, or what are you thinking? Or you don't have to give us your specific strategy, but what would you advise others on looking at if they were sitting at 0-3?
0-3, I would probably advise looking at your roster. Check out the players available. See what sneaky players might be out there that have been producing or have been known in the past to start producing around mid-season. I'd probably start looking at something around there, or go for the Hail Mary. I mean, we are in a keep 2 league. Be like, okay, look, let me get this cat and I'll give you this, kind of thing. It's like, what is it? Big risk, big reward. I could be like, all right, Calvin, give me this person and you can have one of my keepers for next year. And then I know I only get one person.
Right.
And so I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying that is something that I'll be honest, I have thought about.
Right.
So,
And so for me, as the other 0-3 team, again, I thought about it last week. I thought about it this week. What do you do when you have a player that is a traditional high performer and a quality performer? In my case, quarterback is basically killing me every week, which having Tom Brady as my lead quarterback, you would think that would be a more solid position. But once again, I know that there was a lot of, so again, Evans being out was a huge blow. So I got a double blow whenever I'm dealing with Tom Brady, because if Tom Brady's not producing, then his wide receiver 1 is not producing. And in this case, last week, wide receiver 1 was at the house. So that was definitely a challenge. And now my main backup, Mac Jones, he's hurt. So we don't know how many weeks he's going to be out. But that's going to affect, my wide receiver. So I'm looking at it right now. I'm the same thing with you. I think I have enough pieces right now where I'm not ready to make any major moves yet. But if I fall to 0-4 after next week, I'm ready to start looking at how do I preserve and plan for next season, in all honesty. Like at that point, 0-4 in this league, you can only play spoiler. Like I don't see myself going on some wild 10-game run. You have comments, Mr. Cowan. I see your face. You got comments.
You got a 14-game season, so even if you start off 0-4, you still got 10 games to win a couple. I think we got to win is like 7 games to get in the playoffs. Don't really need the 6 or 7 to get in. And once you get in, it's about getting hot at the end of the season. But back to the issue, not the issue, the question of what do you do at 0-3? I saw something on Instagram. The guy says, look at your team, look at your league. If you are in the top half of points, then you just had some unlucky matchups and you need to go with it. If your team is in the bottom half of the points, then you might want to look at other people's rosters, see who's not being played, see who's on the waiver wire, and try to see if you can make a trade to get somebody that can your team get over the hump. Or, like you said, it might just be I don't think after week 3 or 4, it's time to just call it up and start seeing what you can do for next year. I say you wait till at least week 8 like I did last year. Then you have your sale and start picking up draft picks for next year. Because I started last year with 3. I think I won 1 game. I lost like another 6 or 7. Like I said, you got to at least wait till week 8 or 9. But the trade down so you can make some trades, get some draft for the following year. Or like Senior Spreadsheet, aka Dr. Caldwell said, you start lining it up and saying, okay, I'm willing to give this keeper spot away to somebody else to get up that might be able to help me get this hump and get into the playoffs and make some noise.
Fair enough. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not ready to give up yet. I would say that not the loss in week 2 was my fault because I didn't follow my own fantasy mind or my own fantasy instincts and swap out the QB wide receiver stack. So that one's on me. Yes. I know you advise. Yes, I know. But it's just like anything else when it comes to gambling. And anybody will tell you this, even the fantasy experts will tell you when it comes to fantasy, we can give advice. But if you got a feeling, you should go with your gut. Now, that's let a lot of people home from the casino very broke, but it's also made some people some money when they went with their gut. And then the other side of it is, the fantasy experts aren't always right either. Like I posted this on Twitter earlier this week. I'm in an NFL league, and the NFL is constantly pushing their premium fantasy football plus service or whatever it is. But their service algorithm for the first 3 weeks of the season has wanted me to start Kirk Cousins over Lamar Jackson. Like, to the point, sending me a notification alert. Maximize your roster projection. Swap Lamar Jackson for Kirk Cousins now. Are you out of your mind? Now, I'm 3-0 in that league, but if I'd listened to that advice, I'd be 0-3 with ease. So, but yeah. So we have one team that is still undefeated. And so let's just take a look at our undefeated team's roster real quick. Let's just see what their player production and see why they've been so successful so far this season.
I can see why.
Yeah. So when we look at their starting lineup, they pretty much have a good set it and forget it lineup. But Dr. Deuce, please break it down for us.
I mean, you literally just said it already. I mean, with Patrick Mahomes, you know, obviously I like what he's going to do. He's playing Tampa Bay. He's going to get his points. Now, he actually does have a hard time usually playing against Tampa Bay's defense. I will say that. But point-wise, he has not had a hard time. Now, maybe getting that win, that last point at the end of the game, possibly, or their no-name kicker, or whatever the hell his name is, having to be forced to kick to win. I don't know if Tampa Bay's going to, well, I don't know if Brady can beat him without any of his weapons, but Saquon is healthy. Edwards-Helaire is healthy and running great. Metcalf, I don't know if I'd have had Metcalf in my lineup, but to each his own. Honestly, I'd have probably put, as much as I know Cowan's not a big fan of anybody with the Chicago Bears on the thing, I'd have probably put Montgomery instead of Metcalf personally. That'd probably get him more points, even though he's only projected 8. Metcalf's going to get way more, not Metcalf. Montgomery's going to get more than that against the Giants defense. I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
And so, I mean, who company man playing this week?
Who
Is he
is
playing
there?
you?
No, he yes. So we're gonna come back to that. So
okay. Then I won't discuss that. But.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that because this is when we saw the schedule. I asked our this is one of the questions I asked our illustrious commissioner. I was like, "What's up with the home and home?" So before we jump into this week, breaking down and making our picks for this week, let's take a look at where we stand so far this season. So here you can see last week's predictions from all 3 of the hosts. 2 of us were 66%. Jared tried to go against us. I don't know why he picked against the family. And went with Mr. Eggcorn or whatever his name is at the current time that we did this, but that was the difference maker in our percentages from last week. But Jared and I are actually on the same page at 50% this week. So of the 18 games, we've gotten 9 right, and then Dr. Deuce is 1 game behind us with 8 picks correct so far this season.
He was 2020 king when I picked him. See, he changed his name. I could have been able to go back and change my prediction.
He changed his name and got blown out. So,
Maybe put it back.
Right. Well, we'll see what he does. All right. So let's go into.
Actually, I reached out to him when he changed his name, and he said this name change was due to you, sir.
Listen,
me.
It was due to Dwayne. I asked him about that name change.
Well, what I told him was, hey, man, we're not going to be trying to keep up with your name changes every week. So if his claim was at that point, well, I hadn't changed my name for this year yet. So I'm only changing it because I needed a new name this year. And I said, fine, just don't make it a habit, or I'm going to start calling out your government name every chance I get. So if Jamil Marcel Brown continues to change his name for his team, then each week I'm just going to refer to him as Jamil Marcel Brown, aka No Shirt Mook.
Because I actually text him and I asked about it because I'm like, where do you get this name from? And he told me that Eggcorn was due to the group chat when we made, what was it? You were talking about for all intents and purposes.
Oh,
and you were talking about how he messed it up.
No.
So I Googled.
Go ahead.
I Googled Eggcorn, and the definition is a word or phrase that results from a mishearing or misinterpretation of another. So because of you correcting him, he changed his name to Eggcorn.
But for the record, I didn't actually correct him. I asked the question. I said, because he likes to troll. Let's just be honest. He loves to troll. So I did ask. I didn't want to make an accusation unfounded. So I did ask. I said, hey, was that a typo? Or do you know that it's wrong? He claims it was a typo, but I think at this point we know he effed it up. So, all right. So let us jump into the games of the week. We're going to start with Armed Rodgery versus DBT Kirkwood. Dr. Deuce, what do you like about Armed Rodgery's team so far this week?
All right, Armed Rodgery. That's okay. He's on the left. Okay, I like St. Brown. I mean, he's been actually producing every single week. I don't like Eckler. I mean, I like Eckler, but I don't like him in this matchup right now. Eckler really hasn't shown me anything so far this season, unfortunately. Normally he does, but he just really hasn't. I like Kelsey. Kelsey's always kind of a good commodity to have for Mahomes as a tight end. I'm not sold on Kirk, but Kirk made my Chargers look bad, so clearly the boy can produce for being the highest paid wide receiver in the crappiest team. So I thought, until we got blown out by that crappy team. Burrow's a question mark. Because I'm sorry, Burrow isn't the Burrow from last year. He's the Burrow from the year before. The year when he got hurt in the first game. That's the Burrow he's kind of playing like right now. And so Burrow's going to be that question mark.
But let me ask though, is it Burrow or is it the offensive line again?
Okay, that's fair. It's going to be a little bit of both then in that scenario, because Burrow doesn't have enough time to think to do something. He has some great weapons at wide receiver, but he doesn't have enough time to get the ball to them.
Right. And yeah, as every Jamar Chase owner right now is wondering what on earth is going on with Joe Burrow and the lack of him throwing the ball to Jamar Chase so far this season.
And then a couple of times I think he did throw deep to Chase. He overthrew him.
Right.
And so it's like, dude, what the hell?
Amon-Ra St. Brown is actually becoming one of my favorite players this year. Not just his personality, but one of my favorite moments from Hard Knocks, which I'm sure a lot of people loved, was the fact that he memorized every single wide receiver that was picked before him in the draft. And it's almost like he has a chip on his shoulder that every time he plays a team that drafted a wide receiver instead of him, he's going to make them understand. He's going to show them why he was the better choice instead of the person they picked. And so far this season, he's making Jared Goff look real good. And he is producing. Like, again, we look at things from a fantasy standpoint and from a football standpoint, and he is producing in both arenas this year. So he's growing on me, definitely. Jared, what do you think about Kirkwood's team? It'd be better if you unmuted and we could hear you.
You know, I got to keep myself muted. I have a 3-foot terrorist running around making a bunch of noise. But as I was saying, Jalen Hurts has been producing consistently this year so far. I like that. Johnson, the Steelers fan picked all the Steelers, but Johnson gets a lot of catches. He may not rack up a bunch of yards, but if he getting these catches, them yards add up. Curtis Samuel playing against Dallas, as long as Wentz can get him the ball and not completely implode, he might be all right. The question is McCaffrey and ETN. Is McCaffrey ever going to get in the end zone? He has yet to get in the end zone.
He will against Arizona because they don't stop any running back from getting in the end zone.
I thought he was going to get in the end zone last week. Honestly, I was like, that was surprising he didn't score last week. But ETN he's in a committee in Jacksonville, but he'll be a decent RB2. Tight end is always a crapshoot if you don't have one of the quote unquote top 3 this season. CD Lamb, when he catches the ball, is actually good. But the question is he going to catch it? Because like you said, in that first half, he couldn't catch a cola butt naked in Alaska. But the second half, he got it together. Yeah.
So.
All right. So who we like this week, gentlemen? What are your picks?
I got Arm Rodgery.
I agree, Arm Rodgery.
I also agree. Yeah, I think that we see Mike Thomas get involved. I think that realized last week that Mike Thomas should have been focused on more in that game for the Saints. I think that was, you have to get him involved in order for the Saints offense to open up. And I'm sure that everyone that owns the skills players on the Saints team would appreciate it a lot more if Mike Thomas was to get more involved in the passing game, because it opens up every other facet of their offense. When teams have to focus on him, and he still has that level of talent to demand that kind of attention. He's a weapon that they haven't been using him enough this season. And so, this week versus Minnesota, whose DBs can be exploited, as we've seen this season, I think that he has a good game, and that's going to be the difference maker. All right. Let's talk about 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal versus Muff Divers. So 2 of our top scoring teams in the league. Jared, talk about your buddy. Talk about Adam's team. What do you see for his team this week?
I see Lamar Jackson, who has been putting up 30, 40 points a week, playing against Josh Allen, who's also going to put up some points. So they should have a nice little shootout and allow Lamar to get loose and score 30, 40 points again, helping out on that aspect. He's hoping I think every Justin Jefferson owner is hoping that he can get it together. Kirk Cousins can get him the ball and they can get it back on track and get him some points. Bateman is the guy that Lamar got to throw it somewhere, and it's normally going to Mark Andrews and Bateman, so he should get some points.
Indeed.
I heard that Swift was hurt, and it was questionable if he was going to play this week.
My eyes aren't what they used to be, but that looks like an O next to Swift's name right there.
It's a Q.
Yeah.
It's a Q? Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I thought it was a Q. I heard he might not play. They might sit him this week and bring him back into the bye week, but that's his issue to look at.
So he has
So I don't know.
On his bench, he's got Harris at Green Bay with Mac Jones.
Actually, he can put Penny, who's in his flex, up, and then he can put someone else in the flex position.
Oh, that's a very good point.
There you go.
And here is a good candidate if he's healthy right here. So he definitely has potential players to replace with any injuries. I concur. Like this,
the X factor is the Cleveland defense playing Atlanta. Atlanta is just not consistently good. He can get another 10, 15 point performance out of them by playing Atlanta.
Right.
And he needs to pick up a kicker.
Yeah. Again. Yes. So Yeah. He this Mr. Who Am I kicked one field goal for him last week, but I don't know.
I think Butker is back.
You think Butker's going to be back? Okay.
I think Butker's back. That's what this is about.
Potential roster move. But yeah, this looks to be like it's going to be a high scoring affair, just looking at both of the rosters. Again, Mixon versus Miami on a short week. Now that's the coin toss, because short week games, especially when you're dealing with teams coming off tough games on Sunday, they're either going to be no defense or all defense. As a fantasy owner, I would love for it to be a high scoring affair. I don't have any skin in the game, in particular in this matchup, but I like to see points scored. I like to see points put up in fantasy. So I definitely think that both of these offenses on Thursday night are capable of putting points on the board. Miami, and forgive me if Miami's still sitting at 3-0, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Miami, undefeated team in the AFC, and I believe that Philadelphia is the only undefeated team left in the NFC. So both of those teams sitting very surprisingly, and they're doing it on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm going to go with two boobs, two balls in this matchup. I think that Knox gets into the end zone finally this week. And Josh Allen, if you look at the defense between Baltimore, I think that Buffalo's defense is a little bit stouter. And if they have to come up with a stop on Lamar versus Baltimore's defense coming up with a stop on Josh, I have to give the edge to Josh Allen being just a little bit more successful in this particular matchup. What do you guys think?
I think I'm gonna follow suit. I'm gonna two boobs, two balls, one goal. Because, like you said, I think Buffalo has a better defense. Like I said, that DeAndre Swift thing. He's been carrying his team, getting some consistent points. Don't play. I don't really trust Penny, even though he can fill the role. I don't think he's gonna put up production because he's not gonna catch the passes that Swift catches. But I think it's a close one.
Indeed.
I got Muff Divers. If he makes those roster moves, Jefferson's going to get points this week because New Orleans secondary, I'm not worried about them. Cousins is going to get him and Thielen the ball a lot, but I think he's going to get Jefferson the ball just a hair more. And so I give Adam actually the edge on this one. So I'm picking against you guys and going with Muff Divers.
Indeed. All right. Next up, Hanging with Hernandez versus the Big Green. Very close matchup on paper. So, Dr. Caldwell, tell us what you think about this matchup.
The Thursday night matchup, I think, is going to be who's going to win this game. Miami versus Cincinnati. Which Cincinnati are they going to see? Which Tua are they going to see? If they see the Tua that's been playing the last couple of weeks, Hanging Hernandez probably is going to win this hand down because Tua's probably going to get 40 or 50 points on Cincinnati, I think. I don't know if he'll get 6 touchdowns, but he's going to get about 50 points, 40, 50 points. I see Adams is probably going to do well against Denver's interesting secondary. Najee's going to do good against the Jets, I think. That's honestly what's going to carry this team. Those 3 people are going to carry this team this week. I agree it's probably going to be close, but I give the edge to Hanging with Hernandez on this one, hands down.
Indeed. Again, Derrick Henry, first half last week against the Raiders, Derrick Henry looked like the Derrick Henry of old. The second half, Derrick Henry was very anemic, very stoppable. And again, Derrick Henry, although he did have a good catch out of the flat last week for a large pickup, that's not a consistent part of his game. when it comes to scoring. Now, the advantage, of course, if there's an injury in the Detroit backfield, is that Williams is going to get a lot more touches. So, but I agree. I don't think it's going to be enough to push Big Green into a win this week. And then, of course, again, Alvin Kamara, it's still such a question mark. We're not seeing the production in either facet of the game that we're used to seeing from him. But the one thing that we do know about Minnesota and the Saints is that they have a genuine dislike for each other. And so I really expect that game to be high scoring and a lot of production from a fantasy standpoint in terms of points being put up by the skill position players. So I think Alvin Kamara has a great game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to overcome hanging with Hernandez this week. What about you, Jared?
I like hanging with Hernandez's team. I expected them to produce more last week. Luckily, they didn't, so I got a W. But I think that his team rebounds this week, and I think they're going to get this W because I've been saying this all season. I do not believe in any Chicago Bear players. Well, you know what? I do believe in David Montgomery, but he hurt. He hurt his ankle last game, and he didn't come back in, so I'm not quite sure where he sits. But so since he ain't on this team, I don't trust Justin Fields, and her only other backup is Cooper Rush. And that Washington defense hasn't looked real great this year. So I don't know if she plans on making that switch or not. But
if you had
regardless,
if this was your team and you had to pick one of these two quarterbacks to start on Sunday, which one would you go with? Fields versus the Giants, or would you go with Rush versus Washington?
I'm going with Rush versus Washington.
I know it's kind of like, do you want the grilled liver or do you want the fried liver?
Fields, if I'm not mistaken, Fields is throwing the ball like 15 times a game. No, bro, you can't win. Like, you can't be that guy. And so,
right.
Yeah, I don't believe in Justin Fields, so I can't believe in the reigning champs team this week.
Fair enough. All right.
We're all in agreement. Hanging with Hernandez?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. So now we'll get into our matchups. This week, we have our buddy Super Mario Cristobalin versus Mathis King. Jared, since this is your cousin and one of your oldest friends, I'll let you break it down.
Oh, how kind of you. You know, the question in this matchup is, does Herbert play? If he plays, that Houston secondary, let's be real, that Houston team is not good. So he should be able to torch them. T. Higgins is a solid contributor. Brandon Ayuk, the passing game for the 49ers goes as Jimmy G goes. And last week they looked horrible, but
I think Ayuk had a decent game. I was gonna say, I know he scored, so he got into double digits. Not great production.
He hasn't been great this year.
Right.
Aaron Jones has been looking, obviously I watched him play and he looked good this season so far. Nick Chubb against Atlanta. Atlanta is just not a great team.
No.
I wonder if Arthur Blank is just slowly waiting to just rebuild.
Oh, he's definitely rebuilding. Like, he's not waiting. They are rebuilding. Like, this is a part of their rebuild right now.
So they the NFL's version of the 76ers. We trust the process. We don't trust the process. Okay. You got Darren Waller. The question is, can Darren Waller get on track? Can him and Carr see? This is one of those times that you'd be like, because our favorite Chargers fan is starting the Las Vegas quarterback, and his opponent has the Las Vegas tight end.
It's going to be mutually beneficial for both players. Carr's projection is under. He is going to outscore his projection this week. Waller is going to score. Adams is going to score. I'm telling you now, again, I said it and I'm going to say it again. The Raiders are going to beat the Broncos on Sunday.
I'll take your word for it.
Derek Carr is going to throw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns on Sunday, at least.
I have 337 and 4.
See? And he's much smarter than me, but as a fan and a football fan, I'm telling you now, we are going to beat the Broncos on Sunday, and we're going to score a lot of points on them on Sunday, which is why I am picking Mathis King to get his first win this week. If Herbert plays again, so you have the cross pollination of the other team's quarterback throwing to one of your receivers. So if Herbert plays, Mike Williams is going to score. If Herbert doesn't play, Mike Williams is going to get some receptions, especially again if Keenan Allen goes, great. If he doesn't go, Mike Williams is going to be the recipient of everything that Herbert or Chase Daniels throws. I think Mike Williams has a big game against Houston this week. And those are the two things that I think are going to be the difference makers. Again, Zeke versus Washington. Zeke didn't like I'm pretty sure he heard the grumbles like everybody else about the fact that Tony Pollard should probably be getting more touches. On Sunday, we saw Zeke making some cuts that he hasn't made lately. We saw him running with a sense of urgency that we haven't seen. And I think he wants to, especially when you're dealing with a divisional opponent, the Commanders and the Cowboys don't like each other. They do petty things to each other in terms of, when you have a team ship their whole sideline to a stadium because they refuse to sit on anything that looks like the other teams, there's a lot of bad blood, and rivalry games fuel performance. And so I see a big game out of a lot of players on this particular roster. And I think that's going to give Mathis King the edge. So assuming that Mathis King picks himself this week, that just leaves.
I almost didn't, but I did.
So that just leaves, who do you pick, Mr. Cowan?
I'm gonna go with Mathis King. No, I'm going with Mathis King because I don't trust. Even Herbert plays, he lost his left tackle. I don't trust quarterbacks with missing their left tackles. They just take a hit in production, in my opinion. And he hurt. I gotta go with, and I'm gonna follow Mr. Morrow's, since he say that you say that the Raiders gonna get this win this week. They gonna produce. So if they produce, Derek Carr should produce. So I'm gonna go with Mathis King this week.
Very good. All right, Mr. Caldwell, return the favor. Break down Stairway to Evans versus Jamil Marcel Brown.
All right. Now, I like that he's starting Cousins because, like I said earlier, Minnesota against New Orleans, and like one of y'all already said, they don't like each other, and they're playing in New Orleans, which is fine. They're playing inside of a dome. He ain't got to worry about no wind. All he has to do is just feed those receivers. Jefferson's going to have a game. I know he doesn't have Jefferson, but he has Cousins. Only way Jefferson's going to get the ball is Cousins flips it to him, unless he does a little handoff or something. I like Cooper Kupp against San Francisco. I like Cooper Kupp against almost anybody. Cooper Kupp's going to get his point. Fournette, I don't know what Fournette's going to do against Kansas City's run defense right now, but Fournette's usually good for a solid 7 to 10 points, even against the Chiefs. He's usually good for that. Andrews, that shootout between Buffalo and Baltimore, Andrews is going to get the ball a lot. Since we switched this PPR, I'm going to see a lot of points for Andrews just on simple little catches. Rams defense against San Francisco, I think, is a good call because, like you already said, San Francisco goes and Jimmy G goes. Jimmy G's like throwing the ball to the other team. The Rams should get the ball quite a bit just from Jimmy G as a gift. And I don't think it's going to be this close. It's not going to be by no 5 points. Stairway to Evans is going to make Mr. Acorn put his shirt back on.
Very interesting. I agree with your pick. The only thing, and I say that the only thing that would make this difference is which Aaron Rodgers shows up in New England. Bill the Hoodie, despite the problems with his team, is still one of the smartest people to ever coach a football team. And he gets up for these mental chess matches against opposing quarterbacks. Like, no matter, he's still a guy that loves defenses and loves scheming for other defensive players. And him knowing that he's going to have to rely on the defensive side of the ball to make stops, he's going to take a look at what Tampa Bay was able to do correct last week to slow the Packers down for most of the game, and try to exploit the same weaknesses, because we all know what the Packers' weaknesses are on both sides of the ball. So he's going to do his best to continue to exploit those. So I think that the chess match goes to Bill the Hoodie. So Rodgers doesn't produce, and so I'm also going to go with Stairway to Evans this week. So, Calvin, are you picking against yourself this week?
I refuse to pick against myself against a team called Headcorn. I refuse to do it.
Fair enough.
One of these weeks I'm gonna be like you and be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna lose, but it's not. But I do have one question for Senor Fritz. The Vikings and the Saints are playing in London. Do you think that has any effect on the fantasy production?
I don't. What are they playing? Wembley Field or whatever it's called?
They're playing in Tottenham Stadium, I thought I heard.
Oh, Tottenham. Tottenham is a good stadium.
Yeah. It's a good soccer stadium.
Even though it's outside, it's grass. So
what's the weather supposed to be?
That's a great question. Can someone
Because
look that up real quick?
I might change my pick if it's raining. Hold on. Okay. It's gonna be sunny. They're gonna be all right.
Who?
My pick can stay. Sunny at 63.
All right. So now we come to the last game of the week. For some reason, I have a home and home against my divisional opponent. We play a 12-team league where you play two opponents in your division twice a season. And for some reason, I am playing Caleb back-to-back this week. So I will let you gentlemen. I will let you gentlemen. I actually thought it was a typo. And I texted Jared and said, "Are you sure this is right? It has me playing company man back-to-back." And he assured me that yes, the schedule was correct. So Jared, why don't you break this game down for us?
We got company who's been riding the Patrick Mahomes train, and normally he looks good. Last week, Indianapolis made him look like a more. But the biggest question about this whole game is it being played? Because there's a hurricane headed for Tampa. Tampa they moved shop to Miami. So the question is this game being played? I've heard they might it might get moved to like Arrowhead if the stadium takes on a lot of damage, which would now home game for the Bucs into a home game for the Chiefs, which might help Mahomes and the boys do more. But
in that case of moving it, you think they would try to say we can play it with no fans? If I was Tampa, I would say if they move the game, I don't want any fans in the stadium. I would try to pull a power move and keep the stands empty.
For a Sunday night primetime game?
Right.
I doubt it. They're like, okay, maybe if they move their time slot up to 12, maybe, but not for primetime.
No, because the thing is, like I was reading about it, every team that is on the road, their stadium has to be open for emergency purposes. Where can you play this game? Obviously, there's a bunch of teams on the road, but working because you don't really want to make you're really not trying to make the Chiefs fly all the way to Miami. They got to come through the hurricane. So you got to find somewhere else that you can team out flying.
They can play in
So, I
Dallas.
don't know.
Nobody's
Man,
playing there this
We
weekend.
They could have the team fly into Jacksonville and just drive to Miami. If I was Tampa Bay, I would not want this game to be moved out of the state of Florida, because you're going to lose your home.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your home field advantage. And Miami, like we know, Miami Stadium is going to be available on Sunday, since they're playing Thursday night. I would much rather, if I was Tampa Bay, put the money into doing whatever I had to do to get the field ready in Miami on Sunday than give up my home field advantage if I have instead of to go all the way to Kansas City. I would do everything I could to keep this game in my home state if I was them.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's all based on what this hurricane does.
Right. And we definitely want to
send
prayers out to everyone who's been in the path of that hurricane, and we're praying for safety. Those of us in Texas are very familiar with hurricane season and the damage that a hurricane can do. So way beyond the importance of sports is the importance of protecting people and protecting lives. So, we pray that everyone is safe and that the effects of the storm are as minimal as possible. But
with that being said, we got to shout out to 2 Booze Balls 1 Goal, because they actually live in Florida. I talked to one of them earlier, and they're stocking up on alcohol and snacks.
Sounds very Florida of them.
I saw a bottle of Jack Daniels in the mix. I'm like, yep, that sounds about right. Got out some Jack Daniels, some Tito's. I'm like,
All right, so if we assume that the game is played on Sunday night as scheduled, and we'll assume that the Bucks find some way to maintain their home advantage, who are you liking for this game?
If everything goes as expected, I'm leaning towards company, man, because I don't trust Matt Ryan to get Jonathan Taylor in the flow. He hasn't got him in there yet, and that is something that's really holding your team back. I do think Pollard's gonna have a good game, but I don't trust. I think your team is gonna go as Jonathan Taylor goes, and he hasn't been playing real well. So I think it's been deterred. I think that's the biggest thing keeping you from getting a win. So Jonathan Taylor, you drafted him early to help carry your team.
I drafted him first. Let's give that pick the respect it deserves. I took him first.
And he is the first player to not perform for your team. Mike Evans had a week off, so he can come back rested.
I should have took Saquon first.
CMC.
All right. Who do you like this week, Mr. Caldwell?
I'm calling an upset this week because I like what Devontae's going to do to Jacksonville, because someone needs to get revenge for the Chargers getting just shellacked like that. So I'm going to need the Eagles to do something for me. So I think they're going to take it to Sunshine and the crew. I think Devontae's going to get you 25 points. I think Brady's going to find Evans 2 times in the end zone. And I would love that. Matt Ryan's going to get his act together. And Taylor's going to get that rock. He's going to catch a whole bunch of little swing passes. He's going to run the rock a little bit. Pollard's going to eat. I'm not worried about him. I think Devastator wins by 20. That's what I'm going to say.
I'd be happy winning by 1, but I'm also not picking against myself this week.
You want to win in blowout fashion, so you get the
blowout, high points, whatever. But the win is what I'm focusing on right now. But I also am picking myself this week. I'm not picking against myself this week. One thing I know about Tom Brady that we've seen in his career is that he, again, is not the physical part of the game that's having an impact on him. Like, it's not because he can't throw the ball. It's not because he can't find the receivers. The offense just hasn't been clicking the way that it usually has. And it's been due to a lot of injuries. And then last week, it was due to having Evans out. having Cole Beasley in that slot to open up things underneath is just going to help open up things for Evans. And having an extra week of practice with Beasley, hopefully Scotty can find his hands this week, so that the ball can be spread around. But I think that I don't need him to have a spectacular game. I just need him to have a solid game. If he produces the way that we know that he has consistently produced for his whole career, I like myself in an upset this week as well. All right. So the picks are in. We got a couple of upsets or different picks from each other. Thanks everyone for joining us this week. We'll get together next week and see how everyone did this weekend, and hopefully our NFL teams are bouncing back this week, since all of our favorite teams are coming off of a loss this past week. But all of us have winnable matchups this weekend. I think that the Sunday night matchup, if it happens, is going to be a high scoring affair. Again, Brady, much like Jordan, doesn't want anyone to take his spot. He says it's his crown until he gives it up. Mahomes is a generational talent, but Brady still wants to let him know that I'm still the man in this league until I retire. And if I don't retire until I'm 50, you can't have this crown of the GOAT until I retire, or the best in the league until I retire. So time's going to be up and fueled for this matchup. So I'm looking forward to watching that game if it happens. So thank you, gentlemen. As usual, always a pleasure. So if you would like us to take a look at your roster and break it down, or your matchup, hit us up and we'll be happy to give you our honest feedback. But don't be mad if we tell you your team sucks, if it sucks. So hit us up. Talk to everybody later.